Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Evelyn and
Christina,
for
camera
E
call.
for EaseDrop. Yes, yes, it's a little different today. You will not see me. I am tired. I didn't take time to be presentable, but you see the lovely Christina. So I think that'll work. But I do want to thank you guys for joining us for EaseDrop, going where the conversation takes us as we talk about what are your boundaries with your work relationships. And we're not talking just about intimate or romantic relationships, but relationships in general. We also want to thank you for supporting PRN, where through community initiatives, PRN offers free, open access supports, resources, information, and opportunities to foster recovery and ignite social change. All right, Christina. So, what's going on?
Okay, so of course we are talking about work relationships. I don't know if you can go to any job and not have very interesting relationships with the people
Work
you
with.
work with.
One of the things that I recently went through was I had someone storming. I'm a supervisor, and I had someone storming, and she wanted to tell me how she was going to run things. I mean, everything was all cool, and you know, I just didn't understand, what the girl's problem was. But we had a cool relationship before, so now I'm having to figure out: do I act as her supervisor, or do I, respond as the person that I thought we were before she came at me like that? Because she came at me as in not as the person that I knew our relationship to be, but like she wanted to address me in a way that I was just somebody in her job, and she wanted to own her role and let her power, her try to use her power against my power as far as the levels in a relationship at work. Because there are multiple levels. Sometimes when you begin to talk to people and get to know people, you develop certain relationships.
What do you mean? When you talk about power, and when you okay, so as the supervisor, you have a certain amount of authority. I understand that. But when you said she tried to use her power against your power, you mean your authority? What kind of power did she have?
That's a great question. Like that the power that she has is to make her own decisions and do what she wanted to do, but the power that I have is to have things organized in the way that I make the final decisions. We can all the way that I run it, the way that I run my group. Well, I don't run them, but the way that I guide them is that we all kind of discuss it, and then from that, I come up with the final conclusion based on what everyone says. And so as a group, we kind of all decided that everything was okay. And she came in late and she wanted to switch things around for whatever reason. And it's like, well, we've already made a decision as a group that we were all okay with what we were going to do for that day. So in that degree, I had the final say so, and she wanted the final say so. Then it became kind of like a power struggle situation.
So I wonder sometimes. I think people, especially now, because there are so many jobs available, so many people not working for whatever reason. Um, I wonder if people think they can just behave however they want to behave because they have options. It's like I
Mhm.
can go find me another job. I don't have to put up with this. The
Right.
other thing I wonder it happens is that too often people go to work to make friends. Some
Mhm.
people don't have any friends. They don't have much of a social life or relationships outside of the workplace. So
Mhm.
some of the, and then think about it, you're with these people 8, 10, 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull a double, you with these people for 16 hours, and then they
Mm-hmm.
start to feel like they know you, so to speak. Like
Right.
you're my buddy, you're my friend, you're just another
Mm-hmm.
person in my life, and forget all about the professionalism that
Mm-hmm.
goes with being in a workplace.
Right. Because I've been told that well, I mean, even before I started working, I always heard, don't you can't be friends with people that on your job. Like those are not your friends; those are your coworkers. But how do you separate the two? How you would have to deny yourself of people bond, and you're gonna come across people that you bond with, and because, like you said, you are with them for long hours, and you work with them, what, 8 hours of the day plus, and so with all that time, you begin to relate with each other on certain things, or you agree with each other on certain things, and you have those memories together with those people. So how do you deny yourself of such a bond and detach yourself for, oh, these are just my coworkers? I tried it. I tried it for it worked for about a year. Then after that, I mean, because I wouldn't even tell people my age. I wouldn't tell them anything as far as that goes, like my personal information. I would only talk about work stuff. But I mean, I would listen. I would, kind of give my opinion on certain things. But I would not allow myself to become friends with anyone. And then I ended up bonding with these two girls that I let my guard down slowly, slowly, slowly. And, you know, we began to hang out. And, it wasn't just work at that point. So how in the world? How
Yeah,
do you find yourself becoming friends with people at work, or do you ever find yourself denying yourself of friendships at work?
I guess sometimes it really depends on what a friend is. I think sometimes people we talk to, we laugh with, we share every now and then. We call those people friends, but are they really friends? To me, they're associates that I have a lot of fun with while I'm at work. I think the problem comes when there's little boundaries at work. Forget whether or not you're friends with these people, but where's the boundary? I know when you're in a position of authority, if you're the supervisor, someone that can write other people up, then there's supposed to be a line there. But at the same time, we're in that time in our society where people want to see that you're a real person. People want the
Yeah.
supervisors to share a little bit of who they are so they
Hmm.
can kind of get to know you. And if they
Hmm.
don't get to know you, then they feel a certain kind of way about you,
Right.
and then their work performance isn't necessarily what it needs to be because they feel some kind of way about you as a person or
Right.
not knowing you. Or if
Right.
you're not sharing a little bit of yourself, then it's like they have all these stories they tell themselves about you and who you are.
Hmm.
And so then that causes conflict in the workplace. But then
Hmm.
at the same time, when you get to know somebody and they know too much of your business and they come in and they're having one of their days, now they want to put your business out in the workplace. And it
Hmm.
becomes more than just about work. It becomes that kind of gossip. Hey, Miss Smith, we can
Hello.
always count on you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Um. So yeah. So yeah, they want to get, they get in too much into your personal business, and then some stuff you just don't want anybody to know at work. But you were willing to share that with that person. You never know, that person may not even be your friend, or y'all just have one little fight for one moment in time, and now your business is all over at work.
Right, right.
So I mean, when do you know? Well, when there are no boundaries as a supervisor, what is the aftermath of that? Like,
When you say there are no boundaries, wow, I think that's really unhealthy if there are no boundaries. I think it becomes messy when people want to feel like you're their friend. You know what? I actually talked to my sister about this recently. I was like, well, we have some new people on my staff, and I anticipate some wonderful things. It's like they know when to play, they know when to work. It's a fun, relaxing place. But one of the new people referred to me as girl. She was like, "Hey, girl," or "girl," something, and I'm like, I think that's going a little bit far. I'm your supervisor,
Right.
so it's like there's a line, and I hate to be this way. Sometimes it's like if the line isn't hard and fast, then it's easy for them to cross it. But at the same time, if it's too hard, then they feel some kind of way about you, and
Right.
then it may not be as productive. But it gets really tricky. Our human resource person said, you do not talk to the people that you supervise as if they're as you would if they were out on the street outside the workplace. And I was like, wow, that's really hard because you work with people, you get to
Hmm.
know them, you get to understand them. People are going to share a little bit about themselves. So you start to bond to a certain extent. And it can make the workplace a little more friendly, a little more productive, but at the same time, you're playing with fire, I think.
So, what kinds of conversations, and how do you not have that distance? Because most people don't want there to be a distance there. With, oh, she don't, she don't share this, but we doing well. For me, it's like I'm just the leader of this team. It's not like you know, I don't know. I feel like if I separate myself or I divide myself, then I don't know how that's going to play out because these people want to feel like you're there for them. And I feel like
Exactly.
in return, they'll be there for you and they're going to do what they're
Exactly.
supposed to do.
So
And I got in trouble at work because I was so like, oh, people don't know how to feel about you and stuff because I'm a quiet person. I like to observe and I like to see, okay, how are we going to do this? I like to sit back. But I had to be more open, and I didn't know that was even a thing. That like I had to be open. I thought I tried to separate myself, but now that I'm bringing myself in a little bit, it's hard to see to what level am I to bring myself in, and to what level to bring myself out, so that I have that perfect, you know, relationship.
I think for me it is tricky. However, somehow I've managed to they know when the supervisor is talking to them versus someone that's just kidding around. And maybe some of it is about what kind of personal things do you share? Because I think some things are a little safe. Like if you met somebody for the first time, there are some things you're going to share. There are
Hmm.
some things you are not going to share. And I guess when you're talking about in the workplace, maybe those things that you share when you first meet somebody, if you can kind of put it there, like they know I have two daughters. They know one daughter plays ball. They know one daughter has a management position, at a home. They know that kind of stuff. They don't know the things that I've been through. They don't know a lot about my pain, about my relationships, about any of that stuff. They don't know that stuff, but they
Right.
know enough about me to where they feel like they know who I am. And I think what they want to know is what kind of person are you? Do you care?
Hmm.
Are you
Right.
a caring person? So I
Hmm.
think when you start to share too much of your life and who you are and what's going on in your personal life, then I think that's where the boundaries get a little sticky because while they may feel like they know me, if they were to get mad at me, there's nothing they can spread around the office about me as
Right.
far as
Right.
gossip because they
Hmm.
don't know that.
Right.
But
Don't
I
share
laugh with
anything.
them, I can talk with them, I can
Hmm.
joke with them. Just that much of myself they
Right.
can have, and they
Hmm.
feel like they can bond with me around those things. So
Hmm.
I think that boundary right now feels safe for me. I know another boundary that I definitely would. Oh, go ahead. You look like you wanted to say something.
I'm listening.
Well, Miss Smith, I know was in management. So, Miss Smith, if you're listening, I'm just wondering, were you friends with the people that you supervise, or did you just interact with them there and give them a little bit of who you were? So I know you say you type kind of slow, so you got 45 minutes. Get started.
we'll be on the lookout. So
And for
so
those of others of you who are watching, please feel free to comment, join us in the chat.
so what do you think are some signs of I have gone too far? I have gone too far and maybe I shared a little too much. Like what are maybe there are some red flags that there maybe you can save yourself. Like I have done a little bit too much. I have kind of come a little too close to them. So can you back away after you've gone a little bit too far?
Well, you know what? I we did have a situation where I felt like, okay, there's too much playing, because sometimes that playing, just like with kids, sometimes you say you playing and you say something hurt somebody's feelings. Next thing you know, somebody's sitting in HR because they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
So as supervisor, when I start to think that they're playing and saying things that can actually hurt someone else's feelings,
Yeah.
then I have not been beyond, when we have a staff meeting, I'll put professional conduct on the agenda. And at that point, I would say, we're a good team. We like to play. We like to have fun, but we're going to have to back off on some of the playing because some of it gets inappropriate. And then I give them examples. And then I even include myself. I say, I know sometimes I play, and I'm going to cut down on some of the playing and comments as well. And then I have to be the example. I
Right.
have to be the example. But yeah, I think in the workplace, sometimes it gets too comfortable where people say what they want to say to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they say it jokingly, but just because you're joking doesn't mean you're not hurting somebody's feelings. Hello,
Mm-hmm.
Kim. How are
Hey.
you? So
Um,
yeah, I think it gets tricky because we spend most of our time with these people.
right.
Um, yeah,
Well, about my situation at work. The girl, she had been working there for a long time, and she's kind of like supervisor, but not really. But she does kind of have a say in a lot of things, and so she tried to set herself up as the person of that's just how she is type of person, so she could say whatever she want to say, and she could say it however she want to say it because that's just her, and nobody's gonna take it personal. But one day she tried me. One day she told me, she said, like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" I was like, "What?" She said, "Why are you looking at me like that? I would choke you."
whoa,
Honey, I said, "You gonna do what?" Because I wanted to give her a chance. I wanted to give her a chance. I said, "You gonna do what?" She said, "I will choke you." She said it again. But of course, I wasn't letting that go. So I told it. But when I told, of course, when she came back to apologize, she said, I was just playing. Yeah, because she thought that she could get away with it because she's so used to, you know, just talking to people how she want to talk to people. And it's not coming off as rude because she's that way anyway.
yeah.
So I think that's one of the ways that like a boundary has been crossed. And what if she
We
really what if she really was playing but like her play?
But you don't play like that. Some things
Yeah,
are just not
you don't tell
acceptable.
somebody you're gonna
When you
yeah,
threaten bodily harm, especially talking about choking somebody, you have definitely crossed the line. But
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I think sometimes this playing can be a way of testing.
yeah, oh yeah.
So
Mhm,
sometimes people test you and they say they're playing, but you can't always trust that. That's why that plan has to be my biggest issue, setting boundaries at work. Thank you, Terry, for the comment. But yeah, so people just get too comfortable because they think they know you. But again, sometimes they're really testing you. And
mhm,
let's not get it wrong. There are bullies in the workplace,
mhm,
and they say that's just who I am. But I think it's up to the supervisor, it's up to the organization, it's up to the agency to make sure the boundaries are clear. That's
mhm,
why a lot of places like have zero tolerance for some things, and they can't say I'm just playing. Because if there's zero tolerance, then you don't have to worry about that. Because
Right.
the bottom line is you have all kinds of personalities in the workplace. So
Hmm.
what's playing for you might not be playing for somebody else.
Right.
What's okay for you might not be okay for somebody else. We have to, most places nowadays, I can't say all places, but I'm in human services. So I know most human services agencies, if you're working with other people, you have to be culturally competent or you have to take these cultural sensitivity classes because you have to understand that what's funny to you isn't necessarily funny to somebody else. It could
Hmm.
be offensive to somebody else, but we definitely have to learn to set these boundaries. And you having issues that need to be addressed in therapy is no excuse for your behavior.
Mm. So with a person at work that's just how they are type. I feel like every job has one of those. They talk a little rough, and it's like, okay, you having to like kind of check it a little bit because So at what point do you have a zero tolerance policy with that person? Like, how should management put that in check when they have a strong personality?
You know what? I just thought about that. Thinking about your question, so many times in the workplace, they teach us like cultural sensitivity. They teach us to be sensitive to other people. They teach us to be person centered. They teach us to be aware of other people's perspectives, right? But
Hmm.
maybe they need to teach us as employees some skills. Some people don't know how to communicate, they don't know how to talk to each other. Some
Right.
people don't know how to set a boundary. So
Hmm.
there's a lack of boundaries in the workplace sometimes because people don't know how to set them. And if people don't know how to set boundaries in their personal relationships, what makes
Hmm.
you think they're going to be able to set boundaries at the workplace?
Right. Right. Because they'll say be a team player, but do they paint a picture of what being a team player is like? Like I'm gonna help you out. Like, even though I know, maybe some examples and stuff like that would help. I mean, and I know that's not technically like a boundary, but they'll tell you certain things, but they don't teach you exactly how, especially like in relational type discussions.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I can't say how many times people have come into my office about how another coworker or one of their peers were talking to them, how they were so upset, they were ready to be aggressive with this person because this person had crossed the boundary and they had allowed this person to cross the boundary so many times that they were just taking it like it was okay. They were being passive and not
Mm-hmm.
really standing up for themselves. And the person just kept on and kept on. So to the person, he didn't know what the problem was because no one had said anything. So now I'm having to set the boundary. Well,
Right.
if I have to keep setting the boundary, that's kind of a problem. So I reached the point to where I tried to coach my staff, anyone that was having a problem with setting their own boundaries, even role playing how they could have the conversation with the person they were having a problem with, so that they can set the boundaries, saying this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. I know you playing, but I don't play like that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it when you talk to me like that. The other thing is people tiptoeing around coworkers because they don't want the coworker to be mad or they don't want the coworker acting a certain kind of way. You know what? If he having a bad day, let him have a bad day. Don't let his bad day become your bad day.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you set a boundary, not
Yeah.
allowing someone else's emotions to um you just don't adopt that. You don't allow that into your space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what are some good ways to like coach your team through that? Like as a whole, just like proactively, not like situation by situation. Is there something are there some things to do ahead of time?
You know what? And that's a good question. Now you got me thinking I'm gonna put it on my agenda. Work boundaries. Look, that's what we might be talking about in my next staff meeting, because I think the way I would want to approach that is to one say to them, okay, y'all, what's a boundary? This is our job. We teach people this stuff every day. So, but what does a boundary look like for us when we're interacting together? I think I would want to ask them that question first. And then I would want to say, how do you know when someone's crossed this boundary? And then what do you do when they cross this boundary? And I think if we have that conversation as a group, that maybe they'll start to really think about one, how they violate boundaries, how they set boundaries for themselves, and what they do when a boundary has been violated. Terry, I want to read what Terry wrote here. Terry said, I've made this a huge focal point for our team and carrying it over to our EMTs. Cultural competency and cultural humility. There are some incredible free webinars out there, and I highly recommend finding them and sending them to your employer, supervisor, coordinator, etc. with a nice little note. Hey, I found this awesome resource that I think could benefit all of us. A good leader wants this from their employees. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it should be a focal point because it's one of those things that we don't talk about a lot, but I think is a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, she said cultural competency and cultural humility. But again, even for each of us, knowing what our boundary is and how we set boundaries and how we communicate. Because too often we look at other people and what they're doing to us. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you know what my supervisor always says, behavior only continues as long as you allow.
Hmm.
So again, the problem is too many peers and coworkers allow certain behaviors because they don't know how to set the boundary. And as Terry was saying, maybe we do need to make it more of a focal point, not just respecting someone else's culture, but how do you take care of yourself by setting healthy boundaries and not coming to work and telling everybody your business, not coming to work and befriending everyone as if they are your best friend, not coming to work and allowing people to run over you without setting that boundary.
Well, I was gonna ask you because you mentioned something that made me think about it. How do you set a boundary with an aggressive person? Because like a person that just has a really strong personality and like you don't want things to go the wrong way. You don't want to approach it the wrong way in the way that you let them know because of how that person is. Like if you know they're sensitive or if you know that they're handle stuff and like how do you set a boundary with that person?
I want to invite Terry and Kim to respond. Um, Especially Terry. Sounds like Terry says this has been a focal point. So, how do you set a boundary with someone that tends to be aggressive? And I think it depends on your role. Like if I'm trying to set a boundary with a coworker that's aggressive, that might be different than if as supervisor I have to set a boundary with someone that's aggressive. Because if I have to set a boundary with someone that's aggressive as their supervisor, then I have their job in my hands, so to speak, because I can write them up.
Right.
I can write them up. I can send them
Mm-hmm.
home. There's a number of things that I can do if I'm the supervisor. But if it's my coworker that's being aggressive, then if the concern is if I set this boundary with this person, if I tell this person, look, I don't appreciate you talking to me that way, or I don't want to talk to you when you're acting like this, or I don't want to be in your space, or even if I just walk off, if the concern is that that person is going to become more aggressive, I think in the workplace, you're just going to have to go to your supervisor and let them handle that. Because again, they have some authority to actually apply some consequences, something that you can't do as their coworker. But
Okay.
I know for me personally, I have a strong personality, so I'm just like, excuse me, you will not talk to me like that. I don't talk to you like that. You will not talk to me like that. And
Well,
if we can't have a conversation without you getting loud and cursing and whatever, then we can't have the conversation.
mhm,
But what I'm not going to do is allow your behavior to make me feel less than or afraid or
mhm,
like I have to tiptoe around you. Because when it comes to that, I need to call in my supervisor so the three of us can sit down and have a conversation. And if that doesn't work, then I may have to climb up the train and maybe even file um, a complaint. What is it?
do,
Because you go ahead.
do you think that you have to have a certain level of self love to, stand up for yourself in situations?
You know what? That's a good question because can you have self love and just not know how to set a boundary? Because I think some people can love themselves, not know how to set a boundary. So what they may tend to do is just avoid. So if I think Christina has an attitude and I can't deal with her, she makes working here difficult, then I'm just going to avoid her. Now, I guess in some ways that's a boundary, but it's really avoiding. You haven't addressed the problem.
And I think a lot of people say, I'm just going to protect my energy. I don't go around certain people with that, with the act like this or the act like that. Like, I got to protect my energy. Is that not a level of avoidance?
I think it's a level of avoidance, but I also think that's setting a boundary, saying I will not be around these people. And if you're going to behave this way, then I will not allow you into my space. To me, that sounds like a boundary.
And it's a different mindset. Is that the difference? It's like one is like kind of a different attitude towards it.
Yeah. So one sounds really assertive to me. One sounds like it's coming from a perspective of I do love me, I want to take care of me. Whereas if I'm avoiding because I don't want you to say certain things, then I'm coming from a perspective of fear. And to me, that's really different. Miss Smith, yay! Let's give Miss Smith a hand. She got,
Got a whole
yeah,
bag.
yeah. She said on the job I was Mrs. Smith. Oh, okay, but if I socialized with them, I still kept in my mind that I'm their supervisor. Sometimes they want you to do something they can go back and talk about. I always told them if you say I said something, you better make sure I said it. Look, and I'm gonna tell you what I know about Miss Smith because she got it written down somewhere. Look, I know she said she had a conversation with somebody 5 years ago, and then, and when the lady came to her, she said, "Yes, we did." Look, let me find my book because I got it wrote down right. I got it
Oh
wrote down
no,
right
not writing it
here.
all down.
Yeah, but you
Carry
know
a
what?
tape recorder.
But you know what? That's a good point though. She said she was Mrs. Smith, and I know. I think that shows some authority. It's like when we tell kids don't call adults by their first names, right?
Mhm.
Because it shows that you're not on the same level, you're not equal, and there's a little bit of respect. Now I'm gonna respect my staff as well, but Miss Evelyn, I don't know. Some of them have called me Miss Evelyn. Some of them just call me Evelyn. None of them call me Miss McGill. Um, but I don't know. But that is another way of setting a boundary. What you are called or what you allow people to call you is another way of setting a boundary, which I think is what threw me when the young lady called me girl. Because when you call me girl, then at that point I knew there was a problem with our boundary. Because yes, I can talk with you, I can laugh with you, we can have fun, but let's not forget not just that I'm your supervisor, but we are in a professional environment and we need to keep it that way.
That reminds me, when I went apartment shopping the other day, I went to this one apartment and as I was leaving, she said something, girl, that took all the professionalism out of any like what, or honey or something. It was something that she was saying, and it was like, mm-mm. Like, why did you feel comfortable enough? Because is it because I'm black? Like, why did you feel comfortable to talk to me like that?
Looks like Miss Smith said, "Hey, Alicia. Hey, Alicia. I can't see you, but Miss Smith spoke to you, so I'm assuming you're there. Feel free to
Thank you
join
for the
in.
compliment.
Feel free to join in on the conversation. But I when I was talking to one of my sisters about the boundary that I was concerned about when the young lady referred to me as girl, and not only that, she's a young lady, so
Mm.
probably not much older than you, probably, as you know. So a young lady referred to me as girl, and she was talking about how she didn't like it when she's retired now, but when she was in the workplace and they would refer to her as honey or baby, or darling, those kind of things, and they try to excuse it by saying, oh, this is the South, that's how we talk. And she grew up in the South and I'm in the South, but I prefer not to be called honey in some of those pet names either. So it was okay for them. They didn't have a problem with it, and that's what I mean. The boundary needs to be set, and you have to be the one to set it. So somebody else, they might be okay calling each other honey, but if it's not okay with you, you have to be the one to speak up and say that. And again, I just don't think um, that we've done a good job, um, well, employ we. I don't employ anybody, so I don't think some employers have done a very good job of making sure people know how to set a boundary.
Well, I know when I worked at one place, this lady, she would say, she would tell me something, but she was calling me Suge, and I was like, it didn't make me feel comfortable because the way she said it sounded like it had some stuff behind it, like it sounded a little racist in a way. Like it's how she, it was already the dynamic of the relationship. Like they didn't like that a new person had come in, and they were, it was so much around it. And then for her to call me Suge, like we're not good. Like we're not even like that. So the way she would say it, it was something that was, I can't explain it, but it was racist. It was racist. It was racist. I said, no, ma'am. I sent the email to her, and I said it in the email because she was a person that you had to cover your butt, CYA with. And
Mm.
I had to let her know in the email, do not call me Suge. Do not call me that. Because my skin will boil. To this day, I won't let anybody call me that because it was racist when she said it, and it just irks my skin.
Hi, Raven. Thank you for joining us. Raven said, I
Hey.
think I think sometimes, depending on the person and their age, they think they can say girl or let their professionalism down if they feel y'all are similar or can relate. But it's not acceptable, especially if you don't know the person, and also when you're in a professional slash business setting. See, that's ageism. Shaking my head. I think it's ageism more so because people think we're young and they can get away with it.
Yeah. But do you allow them to do that? Like, it's like, yeah, I'm glad you're comfortable with me,
Yeah.
but no. Like, how do you even address that? I know for me, I was just like, I just prefer it if you just call me Christina, you know,
Yeah.
just
Well,
a preference. Like,
see,
instead of don't do this, huh?
I think the challenge is this: when you let little things slip, something as simple as girl, and you don't address that, when it gets really out of hand, it's a little late. It's a
Mm.
little late because, like I said, I think people test things. So
Mhm.
if this was okay, then maybe this is okay, and if this is okay, then this. You understand? Then they get to a point to where they're talking about, girl, I'll choke you. No, what you hold on? What you mean? We don't play
Right.
like that. But
Yeah.
when people aren't checked, when that boundary isn't drawn from the beginning, then yeah, they go there.
But
So
some people are so good. Some people are so good with they would say or do something and the message is so underlying that if you do say something, you might be overreacting, but you get a hint that it wasn't right. Something wasn't right about that. The way that and it ain't sitting well with you. But if you were to say something, it may really have been nothing. You know what I mean?
but I think it depends on how you address it. Like if you say, like when she called me girl, and I just had to process it for a minute because I was like, okay, what do I really think about this? Then it's a matter, I know you feel comfortable with me, and I'm glad you feel comfortable with me, but I don't feel comfortable with you referring to me as girl.
Hmm.
So I don't think that's overreacting. I am saying how I feel about
Right.
you calling me that.
Hmm.
So you can't say that
Hmm.
how I feel isn't right, or I'm not entitled to how I
Right.
feel. You
Hmm.
can't tell me that. I
And I
didn't
think
say
that's
you were wrong. I just said
right.
I'm not comfortable
Hmm.
with that.
I use that in my relationship too, like romantic relationship. You can't argue with me about how I feel. So I gotta start it off with I feel.
Yes,
How
yes.
I feel.
Right. And people can try to argue with you about how you feel, but hey, what you feel is what you feel and you're entitled to that. And at the
Mhm.
end of the day, you're left with how you feel and you're having to do something about that. There's
Right.
one more aspect of work relationships I wanted to address. So, I work where I work, there are a lot of men. And when you out looking or you got your options open, it was like, yeah, this is the place. There's a bunch of men here. But I promise you this, they would never be an option for me. Because I think when you bring romance, your that kind of stuff into the workplace, I think it gets really, really tricky. Because if you have to work together, and I mean, even if you're in different departments, if you have to work together and then they have friends or so-called friends on the job, y'all start having problems. They start talking to their friends, and depending on how ugly it gets, those friends start talking to other people about what's going on in your relationships. And then what happens if you break up? And you're still having to work together. Maybe not in the same department, but fairly close. And even then, having to worry about what other people know about you because of that relationship.
Mhm.
So I think romantic relationships in the workplace get really tricky too. And a lot of places I think have policies and procedures around that.
I'm
But
a
I,
third. Go
huh?
ahead.
No, I just wanted to thank Terry and Raven and Kim and Lenore. I want to thank all and Alicia. I want to thank you guys for commenting, joining us in the chat. Please feel free to give your additional thoughts on the topic.
I was gonna throw you a little curveball.
Okay.
Setting boundaries with your boss. I had
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
had a boss touch my hair. You stay in. There is a different distance between us. We not buddy buddy, and you sit in your office, and we don't work together a lot. So when we do interact, I understand you trying to hurry up and build a bond, but then she gonna say she touched my hair. Now I know one of the lower level supervisors touched my hair before, and I was like, um, I let her know like, no, that's okay, but
That's
my
okay, or that's not okay.
right, that's okay. Like, no, you don't have to do that. Like, you okay? Like, without doing it, is what I was saying. Um, and I know she probably like is kind of offended by it because she used to doing whatever she wanted to do, and of course she didn't expect that. But my boss's boss is like on another level, and so yeah, she touched my hair, and I just kind of stood there and was frozen because I was like, I didn't expect her to do that. So like, in what way would you have set a boundary then? Like, is it just do you approach it the same way?
You know, right. I probably want to say, yeah, you approach it the same way, but I have to think about that
That's what.
because I think some of it is about the relationship you have. But you know what's funny though is even more so when your supervisor or someone above you crosses a boundary or doesn't respect a boundary, then it could get very legal. You understand what I'm saying? When they talking about sexual harassment, just which they're not playing with nowadays, this sexual harassment stuff. And the expectation is that if someone says or does something to you that you're not comfortable with, the expectation is that you say something to that person. And you, at the very least, let your supervisor know. And if it's your supervisor, you let their supervisor know. But I think um, if we figure out how to set healthy boundaries, yes, you set that boundary with your supervisor. I know for me, I try to be really open with my staff, and even if I say something, I think maybe I said it the wrong way or I came off the wrong way, I'll go back and I'll apologize. And I try to create a culture so that they can come to me, even if it's about me, because they know that I'm not above taking a look at it
Mm-hmm.
and saying, okay, maybe I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you don't set boundaries, even with your supervisor, then yeah, that's a problem. I think it's the same way. So, what do you say about someone touching your hair? It's like, excuse me, but I'm not comfortable with you touching my hair. And I guess that's going to be the buzz thing. I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable, because I
So what
think
if they touched it like they're not doing this, they're doing this, and it's like,
they're still touching your hair.
so you just tell them then like, oh, I'm not. Oh, you just tell them for next time. Next time,
I would look, I
keep
don't
your
know, the first,
hair.
I think if they actually grab my hair, I'm going to tell them that time. But if I think they just brushed up, like if I'm not sure whether or not it was accidental, then I don't know. Maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But the next time, yeah, this second time you've done that, I'm gonna have to say something to you about it. But if clearly they grabbed your hair, like rubbing it or stroking it, and they didn't just accidentally brush up against you, yeah, you say something about that. Wait a minute, Alicia and Brian has commented. Let me see what they're saying. Alicia says, I just spent a week with two former coworkers. One was the other supervisor at the past job we worked at. None of us still are employed at the same place, nor do we work together anymore. But the awkwardness between the two was intense for 5 of 7 days. Wow. I don't know exactly what that was about, but could have been something left over from because somebody maybe didn't set a boundary when they should have. Or maybe somebody did set a boundary and the other person just couldn't appreciate how someone would care enough about themselves to set the boundary.
Hmm.
Brian says, you make a good point about romance in the workplace. I don't think most people fully understand the consequences until it is too late. But I must admit that I admire their optimism that the relationship is going to work out differently than in the past. Well, yeah, Brian, I don't know. And I guess some of those people, everybody's looking, right? They're looking to connect to somebody. They're looking for relationships. And again, we work with people. We see them every day. And sometimes it's hard not to establish a bond. But again, when it gets to this romantic stuff, You have to know where the line is and show a little restraint. Brian also said, if someone is grabbing you, then you defend yourself at that very moment. That's my point, and I am sticking to it. That's not acceptable at all. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know if, as Brian makes that point, I'm going to tell you what comes to mind for me. I wonder if, there are some women that doesn't necessarily make the point in the moment because they don't want to be seen a certain way. They don't want to, what you said earlier, Christina, overreact when it was really nothing.
Hmm.
I wonder if men are quicker to set that boundary when someone steps out of line at the workplace anyway.
Well, I want to say that for me, I'm an observer, so I like to look at things first. Let me see everything and then make a decision on what I want to do. And so when I'm caught off guard, I need to think about what I'm gonna like, how I'm gonna react, because I know it's a negative feeling, and I don't want to react out of emotion, and I don't want to make the wrong decision based off of that emotion. And so sometimes it's not easy for me to address something right away. It's like I need to kind of hold back and see first. And and also like I'm a very straightforward person, and I know everybody cannot handle that. So I need to think about it first, because I know that you know, certain people you have to handle in certain ways.
Right, right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Alicia said, I think, referencing what I was saying about, well, she was saying about the trip, the 5 hours, the 7 days. My supervisor friend sets a very firm boundary. So the former coworker just could not see her as anything other than her boss, which annoyed my friend who was her former supervisor.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, hello, Miss Ivy. Thank you
Hello.
for joining us. Well, and I guess it sounds like to me, Alicia's former or supervisor friend sets a healthy boundary. Maybe, it sounds like, and I don't know her, but it sounds like she makes it clear: I'm the supervisor. I am not your friend. And sometimes that distinction needs to be clear because, again, um, I think sometimes, even with my coworkers or those I supervise, they get so comfortable that when I had to write one of them up, it was like almost like, "How dare you? How dare you write me up?" And I was like, "Hold on, you know, I've allowed you to do all these other things, not because I'm your friend, but because I try to understand and support you as your supervisor. If
Mhm.
I'm going to support you, I'm also going to hold you accountable." Um, so I think that can get tricky as well, but definitely very, very tricky when there are relationships, because then when you're in a relationship, not, going back to what Brian was saying earlier, when you're in relationships at the workplace, not only is it about um, things about your relationship getting out, but then the question becomes, what happens when you feel like your significant other or your partner is being mistreated, or you don't like something that's going on at work and you want to step up to defend them?
Right.
That can get tricky as well.
Yeah, because that situation with that person that came in with that little power struggle situation, I didn't know how she was gonna act after that because she got sent home. And so when she came back, I didn't know how that between us was gonna go, because like I said, I thought we were okay. So I didn't know why she came with the attitude and coming at me the way she did and other people. And so, but when I saw her partner, um, that was awkward too, because it was like, I know, she went home and told her. She probably told her right away. Like she probably was on the phone.
Oh,
It's
so
just
they
like,
both working there. Okay.
yeah, they both worked there, so it was just like, hey, good morning.
Not knowing what to expect.
Yeah, like not knowing what to expect, what's gonna be next. But I wanted to talk about this what happened today. There was a conversation. This girl is glad that I'm working with her now because I was working my job as needed, and now I'm there full time, and she was happy. And she keep telling me, "Well, you're the reason I stayed because I knew you were going to come." So she said, "I've liked you ever since we met or whatever." And so of course I'm working with her a lot today. Really helping her a lot. So she started asking me questions. I guess she was getting like comfortable, more comfortable, more comfortable. She was asking me, "Well, how do you feel about this person?" I was like, "They're cool."
Whoa.
She was like, "Well, how do you feel about this person?" I was like,
Whoa.
"They're cool." I said, if there was anybody that I didn't like, I said I wouldn't tell you. She said, "I know."
I think you were being tested. I think you're being
Yeah.
tested. Yeah. So things can get really, really messy on a job. Really
Mhm.
messy. And I don't understand how things could get so messy at a job. It's like we're there to do a job. Every now and then we
Mhm.
need to take a break and be human.
Mhm.
We do need to be human, but some of it really is just crossing the boundaries. Like, what does that have to do with the job? Who you
Mhm.
like, who you don't like? What
Right.
does that have to do with the job? And
Right.
I know for me, sometimes I feel a certain way sometimes about a coworker or someone I supervise, but when I have feelings about someone, personal feelings, then that's an issue. Because why are my personal feelings coming into this professional environment?
Right.
When that happens for me, I seek supervision. I call my supervisor and say, "Hey, this is what happened, and this is how I'm feeling," and she can help redirect me so that I keep it professional
Mhm.
because my personal feelings have no room in there. So what is going on that my personal feelings are coming into it? Was there a boundary that I neglected to set? So now I'm feeling some kind of way personally. Or is there really a problem and my spirit is just quickening to say, hey, there's something going on here that needs to be addressed. But I can always go to her to get that objective perspective.
But that's interesting that you are able to have because your feelings are a personal thing, and it's interesting that you are able to go to guidance with your supervisor about that. Like, I'm having a personal experience, but how do I keep it professional?
Right. So
And
we talk about what happened in the professional environment that led me to feel that way.
mm,
So my supervisor is quick to say, "Hey," not just to me, but to quick to say this to me to tell the people I supervise, tell them we have EAP. tell them they
we
can
got
go for
something for that.
counseling. And I
Yeah.
will not. She has said to me before, "Well, we have EAP." So
Hmm.
basically, she says that personal stuff, especially because people do bring things to work with them,
Hmm.
like the person that you were talking about early. We don't
Hmm.
know what was going on with her, what vulnerability factors she was experiencing before she came to work that caused her to act the way she did.
Hmm.
But we've been told where I am to try to be sensitive to what people might be going through, especially as we just went through COVID. There's been a bunch of changes. There was grief, there was loss, there was change, all that stuff. To be sensitive to what someone may be going through, because some of the boundaries may be messed up because of all these other things that they're bringing to work with them. So
Hmm.
to hear them, to say, hey, uh, to hear them first, to understand that they may be going through their own things, to understand that they have a life outside of the job, but that is concerning when they bring stuff from the outside into the workplace, and then to remind them that counseling is available if it's not available through your job through EAP, just to kind of say, hey, have you thought about seeking a counselor?
So as
It,
a supervisor, it's like being a therapist. Like you can hear their side, but they're not supposed to hear your side. Like, so the therapist is going to say, "Okay, this is what we're going to do about this." Like you give me the information, I hear what you're saying, and this is how I can help. but you don't give back. Like,
Well, that's not necessarily true because a therapist can self disclose when it's appropriate and when it's helpful for the person you're disclosing to. So the disclosure should be limited to only what's helpful. So
mm,
to say, I hear you, I feel frustrated at work sometimes too. We have a lot of changes, we've been short staffed. I feel that too.
mm,
So I can understand that. Or I have kids, so I understand how kids can have you worried and upset. So just you can empathize.
right, okay,
You can disclose how much of that you can relate to without being given too many details, and then say, however, this is not appropriate, or however,
hmm,
when your personal stuff starts to interfere with the workplace, then we have to talk, then it interferes with your job performance, and we have to talk about this on a different level.
hmm. Well, we're pushing for time, but I want to throw this last little relationship piece in there. What about family working with family?
Oh Lord, girl, that's a whole other that's a whole other topic. Because again, if you can't set boundaries with the person before you get to work,
That's
how do
true.
you think you're gonna set boundaries when you get there? And then other things, with therapies, we talk about this dual relationship. Now you're talking about a dual relationship. And there are reasons why therapists aren't allowed to participate in a dual relationship. Because it gets really tricky, because while you can try to be rational with people you work with and you don't know very well, I promise there's some emotions that come in, and your feelings maybe more times because you feel a certain obligation or expectation from family members and how you think they should treat you, and but we're
Mm-hmm.
blood. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. That might be another topic, but I do want to thank everyone that participated, that logged in, even if it was for a short period of time. A special thank you to all the people that commented in the chat. We very much appreciate that. I never know who's out there until people are in the chat. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, I don't know what we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks, but we will be back in 2 weeks. The week of, actually, what's that? Is that July the 2nd? July? I don't know. Well, hopefully you guys are tuned in while you're on your holiday, enjoying your 4th of July. Christine, you want to take us out?
Um, I think if we have set healthy boundaries at work, we'll be happy and healthy at work. We'll be glad to come to work. Work won't be as stressful when you're surrounded with people who respect each other and understand one another from where they are. So I think if you learn to set healthy boundaries at work, then it'll it'll make your work life a lot easier.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Everybody have a good
night.
one. Until next time.